The New Horizon emerged from hyperspace near the edge of Federation territory, its arrival sending shockwaves through monitoring stations across 3 star systems. Sensor operators stared at their displays in confusion, as readings showed a ship design that matched nothing in their extensive databases. The vessel's energy signature was completely alien, unlike anything the Federation had encountered in over 2,000 years of space exploration. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, studying the tactical display that showed several large structures in the distance. Space stations and orbital platforms dotted the system, clearly indicating an advanced civilization. His heart raced with excitement and nervousness as he realized humanity was about to make contact with alien life for the first time in recorded history. Amy Walsh worked frantically at her communication station, scanning through radio frequencies and exotic transmission methods in search of alien signals. Within minutes she found them. Complex data streams carrying what was obviously intelligent communication between the various stations and ships in the system. The patterns were unlike anything in human language databases, but they showed clear signs of structured grammar and logical organization. Dr. Lisa Carter leaned over Amy's shoulder, watching the alien transmission scroll across multiple screens. As a xenobiologist, she had dreamed of this moment for decades, but seeing actual proof of alien intelligence still left her breathless with wonder. These beings had built an impressive civilization among the stars, far beyond anything humanity had achieved. Jake made the decision to announce their presence openly, rather than trying to hide or sneak through the system. He ordered Amy to broadcast a simple mathematical sequence followed by universal constants that any intelligent species should recognize. The message was designed to show peaceful intent and demonstrate that humans were rational beings capable of logical thought. The response came faster than expected, but not in the way Jake had hoped. Admiral Thys Corin of the Zephyrian Defense Force received the initial contact reports while conducting routine patrol exercises near the border. His compound eyes studied the tactical displays as his subordinates provided continuous updates on the unknown vessel's position and capabilities. Corin was a veteran military officer who had spent his entire career protecting Federation space from threats both internal and external. The sudden appearance of an unknown ship with alien technology triggered every defensive instinct he possessed. In his experience, unidentified vessels usually meant trouble, pirates, or worse. The Admiral ordered the unknown ship to submit to immediate boarding and inspection, broadcasting his demands on multiple frequencies in Federation standard language. When no response came after several minutes, he assumed the aliens either could not understand Federation communications or were choosing to ignore lawful orders from legitimate authority. Jake Morrison stared at the alien message displayed on his screens, frustrated by their inability to understand what was being transmitted. Amy worked desperately to find patterns in the alien language, but the grammatical structure was completely foreign to human linguistic models. The tone of the messages seemed urgent and demanding, which worried Jake considerably. Tony Rodriguez monitored their ship systems carefully, noting that several alien vessels were moving to intercept their position. The ships were larger than the New Horizon and showed clear signs of military design, with weapon systems that registered as active on their threat detection equipment. He reported his findings to Jake with growing concern. When Jake refused to allow armed alien vessels to dock with his ship without establishing proper communication protocols, Admiral Corin interpreted this resistance as hostile behavior. The Admiral had dealt with pirates and smugglers who used similar tactics, pretending not to understand orders while preparing for combat or escape. Corin dispatched a full squadron of interceptor craft with orders to force the alien vessel to comply with Federation boarding procedures. He expected the unknown ship to surrender immediately when faced with overwhelming military superiority, as most sensible crews did when confronted by Federation forces. The Federation pilots approached the New Horizon with standard intimidation tactics, flying in close formation to demonstrate their numerical advantage, while targeting systems locked onto the human ship. They had performed this maneuver hundreds of times against smugglers and pirates, and it almost always resulted in immediate surrender. But Jake Morrison was not a smuggler or pirate. He was a veteran of humanity's resource wars who had commanded fast attack boats against superior enemy forces for over a decade. When Kevin Barnes reported that alien fighters were approaching in attack formation, Jake's military instincts took over completely. Kevin Barnes was humanity's best pilot, a former test pilot who had helped develop the New Horizons advanced maneuvering systems. When Jake gave him permission to take evasive action, Kevin's face lit up with the kind of smile that made smart people nervous. He had been hoping for a chance to see what their ship could really do. The Federation pilots expected the alien vessel to flee in a straight line or attempt simple evasive maneuvers. Instead, the New Horizon began performing aerobatic stunts that should have been impossible for a ship of its size and mass. Kevin treated the encounter like an extreme video game, pulling off maneuvers that left the alien pilots confused and disoriented. Human reflexes, evolved from millions of years as persistence hunters and tool users, allowed Kevin to process multiple threats simultaneously while maintaining perfect control of his vessel. He flew through the alien formation like a dancer, always staying one step ahead of their targeting systems while avoiding any aggressive actions that might escalate the situation. The Federation pilots had never encountered anything like this before. Their training emphasized formation flying and overwhelming firepower, not individual dogfighting skills. The alien ship moved like it was alive, responding to threats with creativity and unpredictability that made their standard tactics useless. Dr. Carter monitored alien communications during the chase, her linguistic analysis programs working overtime to decode the rapidly changing message traffic. She noticed that many of the alien words seemed familiar, matching patterns from human mythology and ancient folklore in ways that should have been impossible. Commander Kelis Vinthar arrived in the system aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Voice, having detected the unusual energy signatures from his research station. He immediately recognized the technology patterns from his ancient data fragments and realized that something extraordinary was happening. Kelos transmitted emergency orders to Admiral Corrin, commanding him to cease hostile actions immediately. The Admiral's compound eyes widened in surprise as he read the priority override codes that gave Kelos temporary command authority. He ordered his fighters to break off their pursuit and return to defensive positions. As the alien fighters withdrew, Amy Walsh finally achieved a breakthrough in her translation efforts. The alien language contained recognizable root words from ancient human languages, suggesting some kind of historical connection between the species. When she applied her new translation matrix to the alien communications, her face went pale with shock. Kelos opened a direct channel to the New Horizon and transmitted a message that changed galactic history forever. In broken but understandable English, he asked the question that had been burning in his mind since discovering the ancient fragments. "Are you the ones called human?" Jake Morrison stared at the translation display, his mind struggling to process what he was reading. Somehow these aliens knew about humans and could even speak their language. After a moment of stunned silence, he activated his transmission system and replied with words that would echo through history. "Yes, we are human, and we come in peace." The news that humans were real spread through the Federation like wildfire, causing emergency sessions on every major world and sending shock waves through the established order. Chancellor Morex Thane of the ruling council found himself dealing with the biggest diplomatic crisis in Federation history as member species demanded answers about how their legendary warriors had suddenly appeared in their space. On the scholarly world of Altair Prime, ancient historians worked frantically to verify old records and texts, searching for any evidence that might explain the connection between myth and reality. The Altarians had always been the most interested in the human legends, treating them as important cultural stories rather than simple entertainment for children. General Zilla Voss, the Federation's supreme military commander, studied tactical reports from Admiral Corrin's encounter with growing unease. A single alien vessel had outmaneuvered an entire squadron of Federation fighters without firing a shot or taking any damage. If these humans were as capable as their legends suggested, they could represent a serious threat to Federation security. Commander Kelos arranged for formal diplomatic meetings at Harmony Point, a neutral station located at the intersection of three major trade routes. The station was designed specifically for interspecies negotiations, with environmental controls that could accommodate the biological needs of all Federation member races. Jake Morrison and his senior officers prepared for their first official meeting with an alien government, studying what little information they had about Federation culture and diplomatic customs. Dr. Carter worked overtime to understand the various species they would encounter, while Amy Walsh continued her efforts to master the complex Federation language systems, the diplomatic shuttle that carried the human delegation to Harmony. Point was escorted by a full honor guard of Federation vessels, treating Jake and his team with the respect normally reserved for heads of state. Jake felt the weight of representing his entire species as they approached the massive station that would host this historic first contact. Inside Harmony Point's main conference chamber, representatives from all 12 Federation member species gathered to meet the legendary humans face to face. The chamber was a marvel of engineering, with atmospheric zones and gravity fields adjusted for each delegation's specific biological requirements. Chancellor, Thane was an elderly Vorthak whose crystalline body contained thousands of years of stored knowledge and experience. He had grown up hearing human legends and never imagined he would live to meet actual humans. His first impression was surprise at how ordinary they appeared compared to the mythical warriors of the stories. General Voss represented the military viewpoint, with her imposing presence and battle-scarred carapace. She studied the human delegation with the calculating gaze of a professional soldier, noting their movements, equipment, and behavior patterns. Everything about them suggested competence and confidence, but also unpredictability. Dr. Carter presented her findings about ancient human presence in the galaxy, using archaeological evidence and genetic analysis to prove that humans had indeed traveled among the stars thousands of years ago. Her research showed that early human explorers had established colonies on several worlds and apparently helped various alien species fight off some long-forgotten galactic threat. The revelation that ancient humans had been allies and protectors rather than conquerors surprised many Federation representatives. The legends had grown and changed over millennia, emphasizing the warrior aspects while forgetting the cooperative relationships that had existed between humans and other species. Jake Morrison addressed the assembly with carefully chosen words, explaining that modern humans sought friendship and mutual cooperation rather than dominance or submission. He made it clear that humanity would not simply join the Federation as subordinate members, but wanted to establish independent relationships based on trade and shared interests. This stance created immediate tension within the Federation Council. Species like the Altarians welcomed human knowledge and fresh perspectives on old problems, but military-focused races like the Zephyrians saw human independence as a challenge to their carefully maintained hierarchical system of governance. The situation became more complicated when Tony Rodriguez was invited to demonstrate human technology for the assembled delegates. His casual explanation of their faster-than-light drive and adaptive artificial intelligence systems revealed that humans had developed capabilities that exceeded current Federation standards in several key areas. General Voss paid particular attention to Rodriguez's technical presentation, her military mind immediately grasping the strategic implications of superior human technology. If humans could build better ships and weapons, they would have significant advantages in any future conflict between their species and the Federation. The human delegation was given quarters in the station's diplomatic section, while negotiations continued over several days. Jake and his team used this time to learn more about Federation culture and politics, gradually understanding the complex relationships between member species. Amy Walsh discovered that each Federation species had their own version of human legends, with details that varied based on cultural values and historical experiences. Some stories emphasized human courage and determination, while others focused on their innovative thinking and problem-solving abilities. Dr. Carter studied Federation biological diversity with scientific fascination, documenting species characteristics and evolutionary adaptations that had allowed 12 different races to work together successfully. She began developing theories about how humans might fit into this complex ecosystem of intelligent life. Behind closed doors, General Voss met secretly with Admiral Corrin and other military leaders who shared her concerns about human capabilities. They discussed scenarios where human independence might threaten Federation stability, particularly if other species decided to follow the human example and demand greater autonomy. The general's fears grew stronger when she learned details about the recent encounter with the New Horizon. Human pilots had outperformed Federation crews using tactics that seemed to come naturally to them, suggesting that their entire species might possess superior combat instincts. Chancellor Thane tried to maintain diplomatic balance while managing competing interests within his own government. The Vorthak valued knowledge and wisdom above military power, making them natural allies of the humans. But Thane understood that other species had legitimate concerns about maintaining stability and order. Jake Morrison sensed the growing tension during formal negotiations, his military experience helping him recognize the signs of brewing conflict. He realized that some Federation leaders viewed humanity as a threat rather than an opportunity, despite all efforts to demonstrate peaceful intentions. The turning point came when reports arrived about a crisis at the Kepler-7 mining operation. An ancient automated defense system had been accidentally activated, threatening the lives of 3,000 Federation workers. Standard military responses had failed completely, with 2 battlecruisers destroyed and no progress made toward resolving the situation. General Voss reluctantly agreed to request human assistance, partly as a test of their capabilities and partly because no other options remained. She wanted to see how humans would handle a real crisis situation. Hoping to gain insight into their methods and limitations, Jake volunteered to help immediately, despite knowing that he was walking into a potential trap. His crew prepared for their most dangerous mission yet, unaware that their actions would determine whether humans would be accepted as friends or marked for elimination. The mining operation on Kepler-7 had been running smoothly for over 50 years, extracting rare minerals from deep underground caverns while providing jobs for thousands of Dularian workers. The Dularians were a peaceful species known for their skill with heavy machinery and their dedication to honest labor. They had no military experience and no weapons training, making them helpless when the ancient Guardians awakened. The mechanical defenders were relics from a civilization that had vanished millions of years ago, left behind to protect something that no longer existed. They were built from materials the Federation could not identify and powered by energy sources that defied current scientific understanding. Each Guardian stood 3 meters tall and moved with fluid grace despite their massive size. Federation military forces had responded with overwhelming firepower, believing that superior numbers and advanced weapons would quickly destroy the ancient machines. The battlecruiser Destiny's Edge led the assault with plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes, while fighter squadrons provided support with precision strikes. The Guardians adapted to each Federation attack with terrifying efficiency. Their armor absorbed plasma fire and deflected quantum explosions, while their own weapons carved through Federation shields like they were made of paper. When the Destiny's Edge was destroyed with all hands, Admiral Corrin realized they were facing technology far beyond their understanding. The second battlecruiser, Starlight's Fury, attempted a different approach using electromagnetic pulse weapons and gravitational disruptors. The Guardians simply modified their defensive systems and continued their systematic destruction of Federation equipment. Captain Morvek watched helplessly as his ship was torn apart by energy beams that seemed to come from nowhere. General Voss studied the tactical reports with growing frustration and concern. Federation military doctrine was based on technological superiority and overwhelming force, but neither advantage meant anything against enemies who could adapt instantly to any threat. She needed a different approach, and only one option remained. Jake Morrison received the request for assistance, while the New Horizon was docked at Harmony Point for repairs and resupply. Despite his crew's exhaustion from weeks of diplomatic meetings, he immediately volunteered to help with the rescue mission. 3,000 lives hung in the balance, and no human could ignore such a desperate situation. Kevin Barnes plotted the fastest course to Kepler-7, while Tony Rodriguez worked frantically to optimize their ship's systems for combat operations. Dr. Carter studied everything available about the Guardian technology, searching for weaknesses that Federation scientists might have missed. Amy Walsh monitored communications from the mining operation, listening to increasingly desperate calls for help. Marine Sergeant Carl Davis led a squad of human soldiers who had been quietly added to the New Horizons crew after first contact with the Federation. These men and women were veterans of Earth's most brutal conflicts, trained in unconventional warfare and special operations. They understood that sometimes the direct approach was not the best approach. The journey to Kepler-7 took 18 hours at maximum speed, during which Jake developed his strategy for dealing with the Guardian threat. Instead of relying on overwhelming force like the Federation, he planned to use mobility, creativity, and teamwork to achieve their objectives. Human military doctrine emphasized adaptability over raw power. When the New Horizon arrived at Kepler 7, Jake was shocked by the scale of destruction. Debris from Federation warships drifted through space while the Guardians continued their methodical elimination of mining equipment and facilities. The ancient machines showed no interest in preserving life, treating everything as potential threats to be eliminated. Carl Davis and his Marines launched immediately in small assault craft, using stealth technology to avoid Guardian detection systems. Their mission was to reach the trapped miners and establish safe evacuation routes while the New Horizon provided distraction and support. Each Marine carried equipment specifically designed for rescue operations in hostile environments. Kevin Barnes flew the New Horizon through the Guardian formations like a dancer, using the ship's superior maneuverability to confuse the ancient machines while avoiding their devastating weapons. He treated the engagement like a three-dimensional chess game, always thinking several moves ahead while reacting instantly to changing threats. The Guardians tried to adapt to human tactics but found themselves facing opponents who changed their approach constantly. When the machines adjusted to one strategy, the humans immediately switched to something completely different. This flexibility kept the Guardians off balance and prevented them from achieving total adaptation. Amy Walsh worked to hack into the Guardian control systems while the battle raged around her. She discovered that the ancient machines were operating according to protocols designed for a completely different type of threat, making them vulnerable to approaches they had never encountered. Her linguistic skills proved invaluable in decoding the alien programming languages. Dr. Carter coordinated the rescue efforts from the New Horizons medical bay, using her knowledge of Dularian biology to treat injured miners as Carl's team brought them aboard. She worked alongside Federation medical personnel who had been trapped in the mining station, creating an unprecedented cooperation between human and alien doctors. The rescue mission succeeded brilliantly, with all 3,000 miners evacuated safely despite the Guardian threat. But victory came at a terrible cost when Sergeant Davis sacrificed himself to save a group of trapped Dularian children. He held off 3 Guardians single-handedly while the evacuation craft escaped, dying as he had lived, protecting others from harm. Amy Walsh was seriously injured when a Guardian energy beam struck her workstation during the final phase of the mission. She had been working to permanently disable the Guardian network when the explosion threw her across the bridge, breaking several bones and causing severe burns. Tony Rodriguez risked his own life to pull her from the wreckage. The human crew mourned their losses but considered the mission a complete success because they had saved thousands of innocent lives. Jake Morrison spoke at an impromptu memorial service for Sergeant Davis, honoring a man who had embodied the best qualities of human courage and selflessness. General Voss studied the after-action reports with very different emotions. The humans had succeeded where Federation forces failed completely, not through superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but through creative thinking and tactical flexibility. They had demonstrated capabilities that made them extremely dangerous potential enemies. The general realized that humans were not the mythical super warriors of ancient legends, but something potentially more threatening. They were unpredictable innovators who could find solutions to impossible problems through sheer determination and creative thinking. This made them a wild card that could destabilize the entire galactic order. Working in secret with Admiral Corrin and a group of military hardliners, General Voss began planning a preemptive strike against Earth. They justified their actions by claiming that humans were too dangerous to coexist with civilized species, that their independence and capabilities would eventually lead to galactic war. Voss convinced herself that destroying humanity was a necessary sacrifice to preserve Federation peace and stability. She ignored the voices of conscience that reminded her about human heroism and sacrifice, focusing only on the potential threat they represented to established authority. The conspiracy grew as more military officers joined the plot, each convinced that humans would eventually become enemies who needed to be eliminated before they became too powerful. They began gathering ships and resources for the largest military operation in Federation history, planning to strike while the human delegation was still at Harmony Point. Commander Kalos sensed something wrong in the political atmosphere, but could not identify the specific threat. His crystalline intuition warned him that dark forces were moving behind the scenes, but his archaeological mindset was not equipped to understand military conspiracies and political betrayal. The Stage was set for a confrontation that would determine whether humans would be accepted as allies or destroyed as threats. The legends were about to be tested in the most brutal way possible. The stars stretched endlessly across the void, cold and distant like scattered diamonds on black silk. Commander Kalos Vinthar pressed his crystalline hand against the observation deck window of the research station Twilight 7 and watched the ancient debris field drift past in slow motion. Each piece of metal and composite material told a story that his people had forgotten long ago. The Galactic Federation controlled 12 star systems and ruled over countless worlds where different species lived in harmony. The Vorthak-like Kalos served as the keepers of history and knowledge, their crystal bodies able to store vast amounts of data in living memory banks. The insectoid Zephyrians handled military matters with their collective minds working as one. Other species contributed their own skills to make the Federation strong and prosperous. For over 1,000 years, Federation children had grown up hearing the same bedtime stories. Tales of brave warriors called humans who could fight impossible battles and win through pure determination. These humans could run for days without stopping, think their way out of any trap, and never give up no matter how bad things looked. Parents told these stories to teach their young ones about courage and hope. But everyone knew humans were just stories, made-up tales to inspire and entertain. Real warriors were strong like the Zephyrians or smart like the Vorthak. The idea of some legendary race that could do impossible things was silly fantasy for children. Kalos had believed this too until he found the data fragments 3 days ago. Deep in the station's oldest storage banks, hidden behind layers of corrupted files and forgotten code, he discovered something that made his crystalline heart race. Coordinates to a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system at the edge of known space. The fragments called this world Earth, and claimed it was the home of the legendary humans. Most of his colleagues laughed when he showed them the data. Dr. Thin Chorus, the station's chief archaeologist, said Kalos was chasing shadows and wasting time. Captain Vex Morlan of the station guard suggested the fragments were fake, planted by someone as a joke. Even Kalos's own research team thought he had lost his scientific mind to fantasy and wishful thinking. But Kalos could not let go of what he had found. The data was old, older than the Federation itself. The file structures matched nothing in their current systems, but showed signs of being real historical records. Someone had gone to great trouble to hide this information, which meant it was important enough to preserve in secret. Far across the galaxy on the small blue world called Earth, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ship New Horizon and watched his crew make final preparations for humanity's greatest adventure. After decades of war, pollution, and near extinction, humans had finally built their first ship capable of traveling between the stars. Their mission was simple but vital: find new worlds where humans could live and establish peaceful contact with any alien life they might discover. Jake was a career military officer who had fought in the resource wars that nearly destroyed human civilization. He understood the value of caution and planning, but he also knew when bold action was needed. Leading humanity's first interstellar mission required both qualities in equal measure. Dr. Lisa Carter worked at the science station, her fingers flying over holographic displays as she reviewed everything humanity knew about alien biology and possible contact scenarios. She had spent 15 years studying theoretical xenobiology, preparing for this moment when humans might finally meet other intelligent species. Her excitement was barely contained as she imagined the scientific discoveries waiting among the stars. Engineer Tony Rodriguez crawled through maintenance tunnels, checking every connection and component of their experimental faster-than-light drive. The technology was still new and unpredictable, requiring constant attention to keep running properly. Tony had helped design the drive system and understood its quirks better than anyone else alive. If something went wrong during their journey, he would be the one to fix it or die trying. Communications Officer Amy Walsh sat surrounded by screens and speakers, monitoring every frequency for signs of alien signals. She had learned 17 human languages and created theoretical frameworks for understanding alien communication patterns. Her job was to make first contact successful by establishing communication with any species they encountered. None of them knew that somewhere in the galaxy, their species was remembered as myth and legend. They had no idea that ancient human explorers had once traveled among the stars, helping alien civilizations fight off terrible threats before vanishing into history. The truth of humanity's past had been lost to time and war, leaving only scattered stories that most beings dismissed as entertaining fiction. The New Horizon was small by galactic standards, but represented the peak of human engineering and determination. Every system had been tested and retested, every crew member trained for years in preparation for this mission. They carried the hopes and dreams of their entire species as they prepared to venture into the unknown depths of space. Jake looked out at the stars and felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Humanity had survived near extinction through stubborn refusal to give up. They had rebuilt their world through cooperation and hard work. Now they were ready to join whatever community of intelligent life existed among the stars. The countdown reached 0, and the New Horizon engaged its faster-than-light drive, disappearing from Earth's solar system in a flash of twisted space and exotic energy. Behind them, Earth continued its ancient rotation, unaware that its children were about to rediscover their place in galactic history. In the Twilight 7 research station, Kalos felt a strange tremor through the force crystals that connected all Vorthak to their shared knowledge network. Something important was happening, something that would change everything they thought they knew about the universe and their place in it. The legends were about to become real. General Voss launched her attack on Earth while Jake Morrison and his crew were still at Harmony Point, believing she could destroy humanity's homeworld before they could mount any effective defense. The strike force consisted of 50 battle cruisers and 200 support vessels, representing the largest military operation in Federation history. Voss had convinced her followers that eliminating the human threat was necessary to preserve galactic peace and order. The Federation fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, expecting to find a primitive world defended by a few ships similar to the New Horizon. Admiral Corrin commanded the assault forces while Voss coordinated the overall operation from her flagship, the massive dreadnought Final Authority. They planned to destroy all human space installations before bombarding the planet itself. But General Voss had made a critical miscalculation about human nature and capabilities. Earth's government had been preparing for interstellar threats ever since the New Horizon's departure, using every scrap of information about Federation technology to upgrade their defensive systems. Admiral Patricia Stone commanded a fleet of newly constructed vessels that combined human engineering with alien innovations. The human ships were smaller than Federation battle cruisers, but packed with experimental technology that Earth's best scientists had developed in secret. Adaptive armor systems could reconfigure themselves to resist different weapon types, while quantum communication networks allowed perfect coordination between vessels separated by millions of kilometers. Captain David Hayes commanded the destroyer Earth's Pride, leading a squadron of fast attack ships designed specifically for hit-and-run tactics against larger opponents. His pilots had trained extensively in the new combat doctrines developed after studying Federation military encounters, emphasizing speed and unpredictability over raw firepower. Commander Lisa Park flew the experimental fighter Lightning Strike, testing cutting-edge technology that pushed the boundaries of human engineering. Her squadron operated from hidden bases throughout the solar system, ready to strike Federation forces from unexpected angles using tactics that no alien military had ever encountered. The Battle of Earth began when Admiral Corrin's advanced scouts detected the human defensive positions and transmitted targeting data to the main fleet. Federation doctrine called for overwhelming bombardment to destroy enemy resistance before advancing, but the human ships refused to stay in one place long. Enough for effective targeting. General Marcus Webb coordinated ground-based defense systems from the military command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Orbital platforms armed with particle beam weapons and missile batteries created overlapping fields of fire, while planetary shields generated by massive fusion reactors protected major population centers from bombardment. The Federation fleet found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. Human ships appeared out of nowhere to strike at vulnerable targets before vanishing into the void, while planetary defenses adapted constantly to counter new threats. Every Federation advantage was neutralized by human creativity and determination. Admiral Corrin grew increasingly frustrated as his carefully planned assault fell apart under human resistance. Federation tactics were designed for fighting other Federation-style militaries, not opponents who treated warfare like a deadly game of three-dimensional chess. The humans fought with a desperate creativity that turned every engagement into an unsolvable puzzle. Colonel Sarah. Blake led the ground defense forces when Federation troops attempted planetary assault on the North American continent. Her soldiers had transformed Earth cities into impregnable fortresses using a combination of advanced technology and guerrilla warfare tactics learned from centuries of human conflict. That while Federation ground forces consisted primarily of Zephyrian assault troops who excelled at conventional warfare, but had no experience with the irregular tactics that humans employed naturally. Every street became a trap, every building a fortress, and every human civilian a potential combatant who refused to surrender. Captain Hayes led his squadron in a daring raid against Admiral Corrin's flagship, using microjump technology to appear directly behind the massive vessel before striking at its vulnerable engine sections. The attack succeeded beyond all expectations, crippling the Federation command ship and throwing their entire fleet into confusion. Commander Park coordinated fighter strikes against Federation supply vessels, cutting off ammunition and fuel to the attacking fleet, while avoiding their defensive screens through superior piloting skills. Her pilots flew like the ancient legends come to life, pulling off maneuvers that should have been impossible, while striking with surgical precision. The tide of battle turned when Commander Kalos arrived with a loyal Federation fleet, broadcasting on all frequencies that General Voss was a traitor who had violated every principle the Federation claimed to represent. His ships joined the human defenders, creating a combined force that overwhelmed the remaining rebel vessels. Kalos had spent days uncovering the conspiracy and gathering loyal officers who refused to participate in genocide against a peaceful species. The Vorthak commander used his authority as senior archaeologist to access classified military communications, exposing the plot to other Federation leaders who were horrified by Voss's actions. The final engagement took place near Earth's moon, when General Voss refused to surrender despite her fleet's destruction. The Final Authority fought desperately against combined human and loyal Federation forces, its weapons carving paths of destruction through space while its shields absorbed impossible amounts of damage. Jake Morrison arrived from Harmony Point aboard a hastily assembled relief fleet, bringing reinforcements just as the battle reached its climax. He took personal command of the combined forces, using his diplomatic authority to coordinate between human and alien commanders who had never worked together before. The end came when Admiral Stone's flagship, the cruiser Terra's Defender, broke through the Final Authority's defenses and struck its main reactor with a concentrated barrage. General Voss died as she had lived, refusing to admit that her actions were wrong even as her ship exploded around her. Admiral Corrin was captured when his damaged vessel surrendered, but most of his subordinates chose to follow their general into death, rather than face the consequences of their actions. The Federation military command structure was shattered, requiring complete reorganization under new leadership committed to peaceful coexistence. The aftermath of the Battle of Earth transformed galactic politics forever. Commander Kalos was promoted to Supreme Commander of Federation forces, tasked with implementing massive reforms that would prevent future military coups. New laws protected independent species from forced integration, while diplomatic protocols ensured that first contact situations would be handled peacefully. Jake Morrison became Earth's first galactic ambassador, establishing permanent diplomatic missions throughout Federation space, while negotiating trade agreements that benefited all participating species. The crew of the New Horizon were honored as heroes by both humans and aliens, their names entering the history books alongside the ancient legends. Dr. Carter founded the Interspecies Research Institute, bringing together scientists from dozens of worlds to study biological diversity and cultural exchange. Her work laid the foundation for understanding between species that had never imagined they could coexist peacefully. Amy Walsh recovered from her injuries to become humanity's chief translator and communications specialist, developing universal language protocols that made interspecies diplomacy possible on an unprecedented scale. Her linguistic innovations allowed real understanding between cultures that had been separated by vast distances and different evolutionary paths. Tony Rodriguez led the team that reverse-engineered Federation technology, creating hybrid systems that combined the best of human and alien engineering. His innovations made human ships among the fastest and most efficient in the galaxy, while his civilian applications improved life for billions of people. Human colonies spread throughout the galaxy over the following decades, not as conquerors but as partners in a new galactic community. Earth's children carried the lessons of their homeworld to distant stars, bringing human values of determination, creativity, and sacrifice to species who had forgotten what those qualities meant. The Federation's children still heard stories about legendary humans, but now these tales were based on witnessed truth rather than ancient myth. The stories told of ordinary people who chose to do extraordinary things when faced with impossible challenges, proving that real legends were made not through conquest but through service to others. And in every story, the lesson remained the same. True strength came not from the ability to destroy enemies but from the courage to protect friends. The humans had paid the price for their legends with blood and sacrifice, but they had also proven that some prices were worth paying. The galaxy had learned that legends were not born from myth and fantasy, but from the choices made by ordinary beings when extraordinary circumstances demanded the best of their character. Humanity had become legendary not through power or conquest, but through their willingness to sacrifice everything for the sake of others.